While the front line in the east had remained quiet, fierce fighting was seen south of Kyoto. The Otomo suffered a defeat and the destruction of an army to the last man, but they quickly regrouped and inflicted many times more damage on their foe. They retook their lost lands and conquered new ones, leaving their main rival in the area, the Saika, suddenly without any hope but for a desperate attack on the Goliath fortress at Ishiyama. My captains, you have done very well. In fact, there is no need for this council to consider martial matters at all. Instead, a more pressing matter, perhaps. I must remind all of their obligations regarding the proper distribution of spoils. According to the regulations of the shogunate, I am entitled to claim half of all spoils for my personal estate, should I wish. Let it hereby be known that I invoke this right. Your troops have rather disrespectfully taken much of the spoils to spend on the assortment of debauchment they foolishly partake in. I'm sure the minister here takes particular offence to this. Well, rather, yes, but if I may take us back a moment to the matter of the distribution of spoils, is it not also the case that according to the proclamation of Prince Yoshishige, the church is to be assigned 1/3 of all spoils? I think it is safe to say that such a proclamation would require shogunal authority to apply to any cases but those directly involving Lord Yoshishige. Oh no, he was quite clear in that it was to be all spoils from all fighting included. After all, the church does its good work in Osaka as much as anywhere. The need for resources is not negated by the administrative technicalities. Ah, but it is, Father, for you see, without such technicalities, I would soon have all sorts of plaintiffs in here demanding this and that. This is why a single authority must have the last word. And as the official representative of that authority, the decision falls to me. You forget that Prince Yoshishige's will is driven only by the word of the Heavenly Father. As the official representative of this even higher authority, I demand that his will be done. Father, the money is mine by right. It's my money, God's money. Is that so? Well then, my captains, I retract my point. You may keep the spoils for all the drinking, debauching, and profiteering you desire. This council is over. Hello there, welcome to Barbarian Masters. We've just taken down a Saika army for virtually no casualties thanks to the powerful castle at Osaka, and the casualties we did take were mostly from the fact the enemy captured towers and used them against us. So that leaves the Saika with not very much on the front line, and we're going to counterattack to take advantage of that. First, Kurokawa lays siege to a castle. There's a Kitabatake army in reinforcement range, but we can get Kobayakawa to sneak around and attack that army. I thought they might just go away, but actually they're going to fight because they're being reinforced from the back by another Saika army, one that appears to be damaged. And in this case, we probably would need to fight it to get a decent result, but in the spirit of moving this part of the campaign along a bit faster, I thought let's auto-resolve that because we do have an advantage, and you pretty much always win as long as you have any advantage on the balance bar. You just take more casualties than you would normally, but we're going to try and tolerate it in this case to move things along, as I said. So there they go. Now with that sorted, the only issue is, are we going to be attacked immediately after this? Because the enemy could take advantage of the fact we have low strength after the auto-resolve, but things look pretty safe. There wasn't much in terms of enemy strength in the area, so I think we'll be alright to continue on. We'll auto-resolve that castle battle, nice level up for Kobayakawa as well, and we're in. We can't really blitzkrieg on forwards just because of the fact that these places will rebel if the army moves out right away, so we do need to advance a little slowly in order to take care of that, but we can still advance all the same and gradually reduce the strength of the Saika so that advancing further becomes only easier. Daihoji also on the offensive this turn. As we can see, we've got a small Psyker army with an even smaller one reinforcing. We can just go and auto-resolve those guys because we had a full stack of reinforcements coming from further north, and that'll be the end of them and another capture for us. Again, we'll have to sit here for a couple of turns before it's safe to leave, and we'll move up more low quality troops to replace our decent ones so that we can move on a little bit faster. We'll start spamming the recruitment of drafted Yari Ashigaru in the area and things like that. And for now, we're probably safe from Psychic counterattack, safe to say, since we've destroyed so much of their military recently. Now, last time, you may remember, we had this little situation. There's a naval invasion on the way, and I've kind of got it locked down by making all of my ships have attrition to put their zones of control over the enemy zone of control. So no one can move here. I wanted to resolve this, so I thought, let's try and fight them. But I immediately realised that's a huge mistake, because now they just sail away. Now we don't know where they are, so we can get our boats out of attrition. That's something, but the enemy fleet with that army on it is now at large, and we still have to search around for it. Bit of an issue, but it depends where they actually take it. If they take it further west, we've got plenty more ships ready to block their progress. Now, finally making it into spring, we can see the Takeda have brought up additional forces, and they've got some pretty good units in these new armies that are appearing as well. A Yumi Hero unit, they're very powerful, some heavy gunners as well, a powerful gun unit that even we don't have access to at the moment, and we've got their faction leader coming in with a load of officers, so it seems this is finally their main army, in quotes, although it doesn't look very good. Lots of really highly ranked Katana Ashigaru for some reason. They're so high ranked that they're actually pretty good. They'll probably fight like samurai in melee. So what we're going to be asking is, can we reinforce? We've only got one army against the 7 or so coming in. We really need to get more stuff on the front line, but because we're locked down elsewhere, we can't really do that right now. We're going to have to just let the enemy continue their advance and hope nothing goes too wrong too quickly. So he has failed me. I gave up on a lot of money and influence to let Shigenobu have his way. The idiot gave up everything for some misguided principle, and he still has not found success. The seas were meant to be mine. An army behind our lines. Everything we worked for is under threat, and where is Uno? And where is Tsugutsura for that matter? He could stop this. Nagamori. Yeah? Time to stop lazing around and get to work. Take the recruits from the garrison and from Buzen and go to Honshu. Why me? Because you need a chance to prove yourself. Can't it be doing something else? No. The shogunate does not need poets or artists, nor any other cowardly types. It needs warriors. Prove to me that you are worthy of the privilege you inherit. Don't think there's enough men around to do it. And how would you know that? Seems pretty obvious. You'll see what's obvious when you taste what war is really like. You're going. You'll stop this invasion, or you shall not return. Bit of a situation brewing in the west there. For now though, we need to deal with the situation in the east. You can see the Takeda main force has actually advanced and is now just outside the castle held by Tsugutsura. This presents an opportunity because maybe we can attack it. It's separated from a lot of the Takeda strength in the area. It's only in reinforcement range of one army, an army that's actually probably better than their main force. So what I wanted to try and do is actually attack Kazuyoshi here on his own with just Tsugutsura by taking that second army out of the picture. One way of doing that is to sabotage it, but that's very expensive and isn't guaranteed to work. There's a much better way of doing it, which is just sending a single unit over to start a siege, since that army happens to be inside a castle. Once that siege is set up, that army is taken out of all reinforcement calculations, and now we have a chance to have a little bit of an army duel with the enemy's leader. Unfortunately for us in this case, he actually falls back when we go to attack him, and he falls back into the midst of all the other armies, so we really don't want to pursue there. So that didn't quite work as intended. Would have been nice to take him down right here. Seems the situation is yet to be decided. We'll just go right back. Definitely don't want to go after them into that big blob of enemies. And our cavalrymen who were doing that little cheeky siege can now go hide in the woods to avoid any reprisals. So we still need to reinforce this area because at any time the Takeda could just swamp our territory, kill Tsugutsura easily, and then be behind our frontier down in the Key Peninsula. At least we do have Terada, who is back from his campaign against the Azai, who can now support Tsugutsura, albeit with inferior troops. We've also though got Yoshishige, who is eager to get to the front line, and I was just about able to get away from Iga with a situation where it will eventually be peaceful and probably won't rebel, and we'll go and hide him in the woods here, so next turn he'll be in a position to support the front line if needs be. At the same time, we do want to keep pushing on the Psyker, because the quicker we can end this part of the war, the quicker we can get our forces back together and not be in such a precarious situation with the Takeda. So Kurokawa lays siege to a castle right there, although it had a gigantic garrison, so now there's a full stack inside. And here Daihoji lays siege to an actual full stack at South Kawachi. So I'm just going to keep those sieges going, since a field battle would be easier in both cases, and they might sally. And what I wanted to do was try and put Kobyukawa in a hidden position where he'd be in reinforcement range of both besieging forces, so if there is a sally at either site, we'll have those secret additional units to then deploy. The Takeda come at us again, this time making a bit more effort, bringing 2 and a bit armies instead of just the 1. Still not moving everything though, it seems they're not prepared, as more forces are still arriving to that cluster. We also get attacked by the Kakizaki army that landed over to the west, and not really anything we can do here. It's just a chance to see what they have so we can plan to take them down later, hopefully. And their army is bad at range and good in melee, which isn't necessarily good news because the army I've sent against them is at the moment all ranged, so we may need to try and adjust to deal with that setup. There was also a small battle back near Kyushu when these 2 Bokuboyas attacked my now very depleted fleet defending the trade port, since most of the ships actually went off to escort the army going east, and the Takeda are coming in with some Bow Koboya and Rocket Koboyas over there as well. And I'm just including this battle to note how it went very differently to our previous encounter with Rocket Koboyas. I kept all of my ships together and focus fired the initial 2 Bow Koboyas down without any trouble at all. Then I advanced in a block into the enemy, and for whatever reason the Rocket Koboyas couldn't fire at me for some reason. They sailed right up to me and then turned to move away, but because they're so close they're now in range of the Dondabuses, and all of our archers should be able to shoot them as well. So we started inflicting pretty big damage on them. Eventually they did work out that they could just still shoot me at point blank range with the rockets, but it was too late. By that point we'd killed so much of their crew they didn't have enough people to shoot the rockets, and really their fleet's just going to surrender at this point anyway. So that went surprisingly well. I guess it is very variable how these naval battles can go. But anyway, our trade port is safe, so that's good news. The real event of this turn was that Kurokawa was attacked by the Psyker garrison he was besieging, and my plan to have Kobyukawa reinforce in this scenario clearly hasn't worked. Guess I messed that up in some way. Still, the battle we are left with is worth a go. We actually have a small advantage, and looking at the enemy's army composition, it's mostly ranged units, which is interesting. So to react to that, I'm going to put some Naginata samurai in loose formation in front of our army. They should be able to tank arrows pretty well and perhaps distract the enemy from just destroying all of my melee infantry right at the start of the battle. So here they come. They've got this big long line of range stuff. They've got some Tetsubo monks in the center as well as a part of their small melee contingent, and there's a gap in their line there. That's where some ninjas are clearly. Now they got closer and closer to our position, and for whatever reason they didn't stop to fire at us, so that's very good for us. My Naginata samurai had to fall back It seemed the enemy were intent on getting very, very close before they actually began using their ranged advantage, and I think it might be because of those firebomb throws we see there. They decided that they're not going to start skirmishing until all of their stuff's in range, and because they had that one low range unit, they brought up everything to be really close, so a nice little AI flaw perhaps, and it's going to work to our advantage. Now we can just charge forwards and try and get all of these ranged units into melee, and in many cases that will allow us to just defeat them instantly, especially against things like the bow Ashigaru. In other places they are going to have actual units we'll have to face, but we should have just numbers on our side. We can just hack our way through them, especially using our small downhill advantage. The worst bit of the battle was over here on our right, where my katana samurai, for whatever reason, had a very, very hard time fighting against the enemy's bow samurai in melee, and were actually wiped out throughout the battle. But elsewhere it's just a case of pushing forwards, routing enemy units, and even these warrior monks are willing to rout since the enemy has low morale overall, and finishing them off. You see, men, we don't need Lord Gobiyakawa. The strength and courage of the Otomo family is enough. He found success because of the wisdom of his lord and nothing else. We make a name for ourselves by living that wisdom ourselves. Bravery, skill, and a pure, true heart, working for the cause above all else. This is how the world is changed. Every slain renegade is a dedication to your own warrior's spirit, and a step on the road to a free, glorious, and prosperous Japan. I am moved, brothers, moved by your ferocity, that I should be blessed with such men. Men who will change history and be remembered until the end of time. This is God's gift to the faithful. Go forth and take what is yours. Go forth and destroy the heathen shrines. Destroy the shackles that have held Japan back for too long. Things ended then with a decent enough victory, with the enemy garrison now quite severely depleted, and we somehow didn't lose any units. One unit of katana samurai that almost died during the battle got away with it, so one day they should come back to full strength. Then we had this little battle that showed up. It seems our vassal, the Ishida, are currently undergoing a rebellion, and I think it's probably my fault. I suspect I've spread so much Christianity into their lands, and they're still a Buddhist clan, that the people are trying to overthrow them to create a new Christian ruler. But we are going to support them just because I'm being nice to them with this unit of cav that was nearby. I think they would have won even without us, and our cav apparently didn't take any losses in the battle, so they probably didn't help very much there. Now Nagayuri has arrived in Honshu with his all-archers army. We're going to station him at Aki for a bit. I'm recruiting some katana samurai there to slightly rebalance his force. I can't really recruit much in this area because so many places are set up for economy purposes, and in Master of Strategy that makes them actually very useless for recruiting. Even making Yari Ashigaru becomes a problem. So we'll see what we can do there. Now with the Takeda situation, they didn't attack us, as you may have noted, so now we need to deal with the fact that Tsugutsura is under siege. It's still only 2 armies, so it's not as bad as it could be. That's appreciated, and we probably are going to be able to bounce back from this because we have Yoshishige on the way in to reinforce. To make things easier for ourselves, I tried to sabotage the 2nd army that's behind the enemy's faction leader, and I was actually successful. So that means we can now attack their besieging army without that full stack reinforcing. Best case scenario would have been that they stood and tried to fight us, but they're going to do the correct thing and actually just fall back there. It seems this guy knows what he's doing. So still no decisive result, but at least we've broken the siege. And the guys left behind can now be attacked. First there was this small support army, and they also run away following their faction leader. Then there's the sabotaged army. It can't run away, but it's actually close enough to quite a few Takeda stacks that we'd end up with some sort of 3-on-3 gigantic battle. And we don't really want to commit to a huge decisive thing right now because the Takeda have so many other armies nearby. We need our first engagement to be pretty much perfect so we can start leveling the playing field. So in this case I am going to stay on the defensive. However, the arrival of Yoshishige does also mean we need to take an action that will reduce our defensive abilities, perhaps by quite a lot. You've grown a fair bit, I must say. Oh, so have you. Grown more beautiful, that is. Don't be sore, little brother. Your games were bound to come to an end eventually. You should have kept conquering if you really wanted to escape your duty. This isn't at all about that. I suppose getting rich from the power of the Nanban is rather boring, isn't it? If this wasn't about that, then you'll be indifferent to the news that you are now going to give your troops to me. I know Father's orders, and that wasn't it. Send for General Kobayakawa instead. I am in command on this front. Since when? Since several victorious marches ago. You should bother reading the messages from the Shogun, eh? Yoshishige, you don't understand what these Nanban are capable of. Quiet, quiet, quiet. No, that won't work on me. I know exactly what the Nanban are about and exactly how all of your secret weapons work. Many a missionary is a former soldier, as it happens. And now everyone will see that your heroic victories were not at all by your own merit, and that your conquests, which already pale in comparison to mine, are no reason at all to pay you any special attention. So that's what it's really about. Why can I still hear you? You'll need to start packing now. How long has Father waited? Don't want to make him mad, do you? A rhetorical question with an unexpected answer. Goodbye then, brother. Lovely to see you again. I will say something nice at your funeral. What statesmanlike behaviour. You'll be shogun in no time, won't you? Back with Kurokawa's siege, I'm going to do an incredibly strange tactic that will pay off in the long run. What I'm going to do is break the siege. This means the enemy garrison respawns and the battle we won previously is now pretty much negated, but I can now restart the siege with Kobayakawa reinforcing and without that damaged unit of katana samurai in my army. You saw there I just moved it off to another castle. This allows me to win this battle again thanks to the favourable balance bar and effectively take no losses. If I just auto-resolved that really easy thing I had before, the game likely would have said that I lost that unit of katana samurai. This way, although we lost far more troops, we didn't lose any units, so this is actually the better way of doing it, and that makes no sense thanks to the glorious replenishment system mechanics. Anyway, so back over with Daihoji's siege, we can also consider attacking, but there's no real reason to force an auto-resolve here, even though we would win, because our strength is only going to increase over the next few turns, because forces further back from the front line are being freed up by improving public order. Near Kyushu, I spotted a Chosokabe navy bringing some troops down towards southern Kyushu by the looks of things, so that's a handy spot. Nice of them to sail next to the trade route since it makes them extra easy to actually detect. I happen to have brought an Nanban trade ship down to defend this area since it was the one major part of our naval defense system that didn't actually have one, and it seemed it arrived just in time. In fact, it didn't even get there, it was still on the way there, and now we can use it to attack these Chosokabe ships, and of course that's not going to be any problem at all. We'll just blow those Bokaboyas up, they'll sink, and the army will now count as being defeated. So that's very good. I think if that army had gone through, that may have been quite the disaster, given that we're now trying to cope with another naval invasion elsewhere. Now in the Takeda turn, they come for an attack on the castle, this time going straight for an assault, but again they didn't bring up their full strength and they've also not brought up any of their major armies. These are just the reinforcement armies with no officers, so that's good for us, makes them a bit easier to rout, and the balance bar here seems to be in our favour, so maybe this is the kind of opening engagement to this war that we were looking for. Yoshishige will be trapped inside the castle, so this needs to not go like our last castle defence, where we couldn't actually save the troops inside. We need to get our reinforcements in as soon as possible. In this case though, the enemy have about half the strength they did in the battle where we lost previously. Because they're only one faction, they can't deploy everything at once. So all we need to do is have our troops inside the castle just stand there and try to hold the enemy off for a bit, while our reinforcements rush to intercept units that haven't started their attack yet to take pressure off the castle. We can also make use of better defensive strategies inside the castle. Because the enemy don't have so many archers raining arrows everywhere, we can just set up Yari walls here and there to block enemy movement, and then use ranged units further inside to really punish the enemy as they try to fight their way up to gatehouses or to places where they can climb to the interior part of the castle. There, 2 units of Nodaichi veteran samurai will fight on the wall, and we should be able to win since we'll have the energy and morale advantage. Outside the castle, a lot of single units came to intercept my cavalry that were wandering around, so I actually dismounted most of the cav in order to fight as infantry, because the cav are samurai, so when dismounted they're pretty decent still and can easily take down Ashigaru units around the place. We've also got Terada's men making a pretty decent push along the eastern edge of the castle and taking out tons of enemy units. I think it's Terada's men and Tsugutsura's men actually combined together. There was one little dangerous melee there where enemy samurai were fighting us in a pretty balanced situation, but some Waker Raiders will solve that. And here you can see where I've just ploughed everything into the enemy units to try and stop them from attacking the castle. So we've got this really messy engagement. I now need to start organising that, getting my cav out before the enemy spears attack, but it has been successful in preventing the enemy from really making any sort of assault on the eastern wing of the castle, meaning Yoshishige can concentrate everything on the defense of the south and western parts. And things are going pretty well by the looks of things. Our Yari Ashigaru are just holding the enemy in place as planned, and we're just shooting enemies and really making this trade favourable. Even though we'll be losing those melees, the enemy will lose many more troops thanks to our gunfire. They have figured out that they can just climb up over here and actually fight with my gunners, so we are going to start taking losses now that they've discovered this, but still a worthy trade overall. Back outside, Terada's here leading some cavalry to finally engage the last of the units coming in from the eastern part of the map. So really we have cleared up everything over there. The threat is completely negated. On the north side, still a few units, including this one, which was charging underwater into our men. Very impressive from these guys, but we should be able to win that fight with all of our samurai. And the dismounted cav have done very well, destroying everyone who came to face them, although they did get a little bit of support from the Portuguese troops, who are pretty much good against everything. In this case, they're going to get a tasty rear attack on those enemy Ashigaru, who will have no chance whatsoever now that they have joined the fight. So these units, in theory, need to now rush into the castle, but we don't necessarily need to do that because the situation inside the castle is pretty stable. The worst part was here, where their samurai were attacking my gunners, but I replaced the gunners with archer samurai, who'll have a better chance at fighting in the melee, and at the same time, everything else that's meant to be supporting them is just going down. The Takeda are losing all of their assault troops, and while we did lose tons of Yari Ashigaru, both to the enemy attacks and our own attacks, to hold the enemy in place, we've done the business. We have routed the enemy attack group, and that's going to bring this battle effectively to an end. It wasn't actually quite over because they had a unit of Yumi Hero, the bow hero, who probably have so much morale that they just can't really rout even with everything else in full retreat. So I had to go and try and attack them with my reinforcement cav, as you can see coming in here very badly actually. Their charge didn't really work because I had to go through a load of riderless horses, and once we're in this melee we'll be in trouble because hero units are good against everything, and we actually took quite a few losses on our light cav. At least we can now get our infantry in as well, and we just have to inflict the odd kill or two on these guys because they're only a small unit. Once you have a few kills, proportionally they'll count as having lost a lot of the unit, and that will inflict a morale shock that may cause them to leave. And while that fighting's going on, my cav elsewhere can just be slaughtering enemies who are trying to escape. Since a lot of the enemies were reinforcing units, we need to kill them on the battlefield since they won't be deleted when things end. And that's no problem. Our Katana Cav have all remounted and are now just slaughtering enemies as they go to make sure this is a nice decisive engagement. It ends in a close victory since we did lose quite a lot of Yoshishige's troops and just troops in general in that messy fight, but I think that was the sort of battle we needed to start off this war, and now we'll have a chance to actually contend with the vast other armies of the Takeda. Several armies had been carried by sea past the Otomo defences with the intention of making crippling attacks, but this strategy had seen only slight success. Thousands upon thousands of men were drowned or captured by the superior Otomo navy. Then, when one army finally made it to its target, the Otomo did not relent on the front line as many had hoped. The theory was still sound, but their execution needed to improve dramatically. For every day, more Otomo progress left less and less time for a meaningful retaliation. That's the end of this episode. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. We'll be enacting a strategy to take down Takeda Kazuyoshi, the coalition leader, and trying to contain the naval invasion situation in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.